All of Adventure Bay had turned out for the memorial at the lookout. It had been decorated with black, white, and red banners with Paw Patrol logo temporarily covered with the flag of Marshall's fire pup tag. The entire town, dressed for the occasion, had come together for this tragic event. Even a few outsiders of Adventure Bay. Mr. Porter had been comforting his grandson Max the entire time as he cried on his grandfather's shoulders. Captain Turbot had his hat off, placing it over his heart as a sign of respect. And while on the other hand, he used a tissue to dry his tears. Farmer Yumi and Al held hands as they muttered in prayer. Fuzzy and his flock were nearby as well. The little goose was being held by his mother as he tried to fly furiously to the memorial statue in tears. Ryder, who had been crying silently, had his father holding his shoulder back for support, while Katie was on the other side holding his hand. The pet groomer gave him a comforting smile, letting him know that she was there for him. Even Callie was there, in a black collar and looking somber. The saddest ones besides Ryder were two other groups, the pups themselves and Marshall's parents. All the pups had been dressed up in their Paw Patrol uniforms, but with a black scarf wrapped around their necks as a sign of mourning. Words cannot describe the looks on their faces that combined with guilt, shame, and sorrow into one of the heartbreaking emotion. None of them had any tears that flowed out, nor did they ever stop looking at the giant memorial statue of Marshall, which featured him standing on it proud for everyone to see. The marble statue had been a golden plate that read, "In loving memory of Marshall, a proud fire pup of Paw Patrol. Just to do best, forget the rest." The only ones were missing was Everest and her owner Jake. They tried to get a signal, but it was jammed by the storms. Ryder could only think how devastated they would be once they learned of Marshall's fate. Mayor Goodway walked up to a small podium, wearing a funeral dress and shawl. Clearing her throat, she said, "We are all gathered here today to remembrance of one of Adventure Bay's greatest heroes. He was brave, kind, and faithful to us all. Marshall of the Paw Patrol was not just another dog. He was a part of our community, our family. He was a rescuer and a friend, and a son to us." He then turned to the weeping parents and their fire team, who had just come to support with their dogs. Blaze was comforting his sobbing wife, who had just held on a picture of Marshall that was shot not too long after he was born. Nobody knew what to say to the two dogs who had just lost their one and only son. If anything, the Paw Patrol had wished they were hated by them themselves instead of forgiven. They told him everything, how it was their fault that their son ran away and met his death. They looked at each other for 5 long hard as they waited for their punishment. And at the end, they sighed and forgave him. They said to Marshall would want them to do, and they knew the pups never really meant for this to happen. It didn't stop them from blaming themselves. They even offered to surrender their dog tags in shame to Ryder, offering to be sent away to new owners, but Ryder outright refused. They were in the family, and Marshall wouldn't want them to split up. Even if I did say that, though, that doesn't mean we won't have to have this hanging over us for the rest of our lives, thought Ryder as the mayor ended her speech and gave the floor to Ryder. Ryder squeezed Katie's hand before walking up to the podium. He stared at the crowd for a bit before closing his eyes and taking a deep breath. Marshall was, I guess it's hard to say, with what was he? Brave, gentle, happy? I think about all that with my pups. But one thing I think about him the most when it comes to Marshall, now and forever, will be his love. He opened his eyes and smiled. With Marshall, he loved everything and everyone. He loved life to the fullest, and made sure to smile every day, showing how much he loved, who he was, and what he was doing. His love was something we all felt in our hearts when we were with him. He felt a presence that made you think that the rays of sunshine itself. He clenched his fist. It's true that it may seem those rays are gone. However, if we remember who Marshall was, that feeling of love that we associated with him, then we could still feel those rays as he watched over us from below. Ryder lowered his head and turned away. He didn't want to see the reactions of his speech. He just wanted to look at the statue of Marshall. I'm gonna miss you, buddy. If there is heaven for dogs, you deserve it. Ryder sighed before walking over to his father and Katie. He hugged them both before turning back to the memorial. Getting the signal from Mayor Gear, a bagpipe player began to blow into his instrument. As Rubble walked forward with Chase, Zuma, Skye, and Rocky, carrying a small casket on their shoulders, there was no body to bury, so they just placed Marshall's dog tag in the casket, along with a photo of him. Rubble, using his shovel, dug the hole in front of the statue and lowered the others slowly into the casket, into the grave before it sealed up with dirt. When the last of the dirt was patted, the bagpipes ended and the crowd began to walk away. There would be no reception, just some time alone to deal with this new reality they were in. Everyone eventually made their way to the lookout, except for Chase, who just stood there and stared at the statue with an emotionless face. Skye looked back at him for a bit before following the others inside. The first thing Marshall felt when he slowly began to come into consciousness was the warm wrappings around him. He didn't feel pain, nor did he feel the cold. He tried to remember the last thing he saw, and soon it all came back to him. Running away, the bear, the cold, his final moments. Did I die? He slowly opened his eyes, but didn't see puffy clouds or rays of unearthly light. Rather a warm cottage bedroom where he was under the covers of the warm bed. Not what I expected heaven to look like. "Marshall, you're awake!" shouted a familiar voice as Marshall nearly gasped upon seeing Everest jumped into bed, wagging her tail. She proceeded to lick him a few times before she stopped and blushed. Sorry about that." "Everest? You're in puppy heaven too?" asked Marshall in shock. Everest giggled. "I'm not dead. Neither are you. Me and Jake found you in the cave 3 days ago and brought you back up here." "I'm not dead?" whispered Marshall, as a smile began to grow on his face. He was about to jump for joy, but hissed and touched his wound, which was now bandaged up. "Careful, you're still not fully healed," said Everest, forcing him back to his pillow. "You were really weak when we found you. You gotta really take it easy." Marshall nodded. "Thanks, Everest. I owe you my life." "No problem. I'm just glad we rescued you." "Arf!" said the husky with a smile. Then she was frowning before asking, "Hey, Marshall, why did you run away? Ryder and the other pups were really worried about you." "They were?" asked Marshall in shock. Ryder, he couldn't understand, but didn't the pups hate him? "Yeah, Ryder had them looking all day when we last contacted. Rocky seemed to be really upset and said that he and his other pups' fault, and they wanted to apologize or something," said Everest. "Really?" asked Marshall, as a tear dropped from his eye. "They were looking for me? Where are they now?" "We don't know. My commuter tag isn't able to transmit it due to the snowstorm outside. We haven't had outside contact in 3 days. You're very lucky we decided to search for an extra hour before having to turn around because of intensity," explained Everest. Marshall sighed and cursed the weather. More than anything, he wanted to see his friends again, but go home and be where he belonged. "When will the snowstorm be leaving soon, Everest?" "Should be gone in about a few hours, dude," said Jake as he entered the room with 2 hot cups. "Glad to see you're back from Dreamland, Marshall. For a second we thought you weren't going to make it. Everest here didn't even move from your bed for the whole day." "Jake!" hissed Everest in embarrassment, which made the boys laugh. Jake handed a cup over of small tea to Marshall, which the pup eagerly accepted it. However, when he tasted it, he nearly gagged. "Ew, liver flavored." "Oops, that's mine." Everest took the cup and began to sip it. Good. Accepting the warm, regular green tea, Marshall felt his inner body light up as he drank the tea. Jake then put the tray away before he said, "So, Marshall, why did you decide to skip down and head to the woods on your own?" Blushing, a warm, regular Marshall rubbed his paw and whispered, "I actually was trying to get here. I wanted to live with you guys for a while." "Why? I mean, not that I'm happy that you want to hang out here for a bit, dude, but why did you leave your friends?" Marshall explained of how the day started with him messing up everyone's day, and that the big fight that he had with the other pups when he broke the TV. He talked about how he ran away, with all the bad stuff happened along the way, including the crash and the bear. Everest gasped and hugged Marshall, sobbing after he explained how he had given up and was about ready to die until they saved him. You should really thank Everest. She picked you up your tracks when we found you in the cave, said Jake with a rare serious look. If we didn't find you, dude, I'm afraid you would have been cold and gone. Yeah, whispered Marshall, shivering at the fact that he was so close to death's cold touch and narrowly escaped it. He then turned to see a teary-watery-eyed Everest and gave her a small, warm smile. I really owe you, Everest. Thanks. Silly pup, chuckled Everest, blushing as she wiped away her tears. But Marshall, I don't think your friends hate you. Rocky looked really worried and scared for you when I saw him. I'm willing to bet all my liver traits that every one of your pups are hoping to find you and apologize to you. Really? You really think that? Asked Marshall, hope filling in his heart. I know so, proclaimed Everest, and as soon as the storm clears up and we get a signal, we'll be able to get in contact with Ryder and the others. Marshall nodded as he couldn't help but wonder what the other pups were doing right now. It's been 3 days. I wonder if they're still looking for me. Chase still hadn't moved. It had been 2 hours. Skye felt that she was watching 2 statues at the same time. But after some service, nobody was in the mood to do much. Ryder with Katie and his dad up on the 2nd floor. Rebel and Zuma were watching old videos of Marshall on the new TV they had. And Rocky was getting water from Marshall's parents, who were silent in the corner like the world had come to an end. It may as well be the end of the world, thought Skye, when she turned about the future. With Marshall gone, who would be their fire pup? They could get a replacement? The thought about someone taking over Marshall's spot invoked both fear and fury in her. No one would be able to replace Marshall, ever. Worried about her crush, she decided to take her chance and exit out the lookout. Walking up to Chase, who continued to stand there and looked at the statue, she sat beside him without saying a word. Marshall would have loved it, said Chase, looking without at Skye. A sad smile appeared on his lip. Although it really should have been him doing his silly acts, it seemed more like him. Yeah, said Marshall. Yeah, said Skye, lowering her head. What I wouldn't give for those acts. I'm leaving Paw Patrol, muttered Chase, closing his eyes and whimpering in shame. Skye's eyes opened wide as she turned to face him. What? Why? Because how can I be a good police pup if I can't save my own best friend? Whimpered Chase, as he stared back at his best friend's grave. I hurt Marshall. I betrayed him. If it wasn't for me, he wouldn't have run off like that and got himself killed. I failed him as a best friend and a brother. And as leader, I can't help my best friend or my dad. What good am I? And what about all the people you saved? All those civilians who passed by, and thank you for all the hard work you've done, shouted Skye, shoving her face into his. You think you're the only one who feels bad, Chase? We're all responsible. We said all those the horrible words, and we're going to have to live with it for the rest of our lives. But I'm not going to quit. You do that, and Marshall will never forgive you. What do you know? You have family. I've got nobody anymore. My mom, dad, and Marshall, they're all dead. My mother died giving birth to me. I told my dad to go to work that day instead of spending time with me, and he got shot. I told Marshall he was an annoyance, and he ran off only to be eaten by a bear. I'm accursed, Skye. Everyone I love dies because of me. He began to tear up and turned away to hide his face. I should just disappear off the face of the earth. That way none of you will die because of me. Chase. He turned to only around to see to be met with a slap across the face. He held his red cheek before slowly turning into a glaring Skye. Don't ever say that again. Skye, muttered Chase as he fell on his haunches. Don't you ever wish such a thing, Chase. I lost one close friend I care about, and I don't want to lose another. I don't want to lose you. Out of everyone here, you're the one that I care about the most, whispered Skye, biting her lip. You really do think you lost those you care about? Ryder lost his mom in a car accident. Katie's parents are divorced, and they refuse to talk to each other. Rocky, Zuma, and Rebel are all orphans, for the reason you all know, and we lost Marshall. All the precious friend, not because of you and alone. We all played a part in the loss, but maybe, just this happened the way because it did. Chase wiped his eyes and Skye continued. I don't know if losing Marshall will ever heal, but I I won't let this stop me from being what I want to be. As a rescue pup, if you want to make your own father and Marshall proud, you will keep going, and you will do what you can to help people and prevent such tragedies from occurring. And remember, she walked up and nuzzled him, making him both blush. We're in this together, especially me and you, because Chase... She closed her eyes and sighed. I love you. She heard Chase gasp, but for a second he hugged her and began to weep on her shoulders. I love you too. The two of them suddenly opened their eyes, and they both looked at each other deep in their gaze. Slowly, their muzzles began to inch closer. Suddenly, their communicator links activated at the same time, snapping them both out of the moment. The signal was directed to all of them. Hello, Ryder? Pups? You there? It's Everest. Everest? What happened? We tried to communicate with you, but we got static, said Chase, blushing as he and Skye inched a bit closer, their tails wrapping around each other. So sorry about that. The snowstorm just cleared up. Glad we got a signal. Listen, about Marshall. Both pups whimpered at that name, and the thought of their friend learning the sad news. Everest, Marshall's gone. We found his collar and blood. We just had his funeral, said Ryder on his line. To their shock, Everest giggled. Well, that's where you're both wrong, Ryder. I found Marshall. He's alive. Alive? Shouted not just Chase and Skye, but Ryder and all the other pups as well. Yep, see for yourself. The visual feed for the communicators came online, and soon what they looked like to be in Jake's room. From their tags, Skye was sure that her heart stopped, and so did the others, as they saw a single Dalmatian on the bed, nervously waving. Hey, pups, how was my funeral? Asked Marshall, with a soft smile.